The exploration fleet of the Viuri people drifted through the silent stretch of Sector 9, their sleek ships gliding between the cold stars. For weeks they had been mapping empty systems, logging asteroids and dull planets, each world ordinary and safe. The crew expected another routine entry when their long-range scanners picked up a new planet on the edge of the system. At first, the readings seemed like a mistake. The surface temperatures shifted from scorching heat to frozen storms within hours. The winds could flatten mountains. The gravity pulled stronger than most inhabited worlds. Radiation levels flickered in dangerous spikes across entire continents. Strange shapes moved in the forests and oceans, massive living things with heartbeats that shook the scanners. The data kept pouring in, and the crew fell silent as the computer translated the numbers into a classification. The planet received the highest danger rating their system could assign. It was officially a Class 20 death world. The alien navigator, Kira, whispered the words with dread. No world of this rating had ever been surveyed in person. Class 20 meant every single element of the environment could kill. A Class 10 world was already a nightmare where survival was nearly impossible, yet explorers had heard stories of colonists attempting them. But Class 20 was beyond imagination. This was not just hostile land. This was a living storm that would reject all life not built for it. On the command deck, the crew stared at the charts appearing on the display. Volcanoes erupted across half the continents. Lightning storms cracked the atmosphere with such intensity that power readings showed enough energy to vaporize metal. Ocean currents moved with terrifying speed, dragging anything within them for thousands of kilometers before tearing it apart on jagged shores. Predators larger than shuttles roamed the forests, their scales glistening under toxic rain. The commander, Roll, finally broke the silence. His voice was steady, but the tremor underneath was clear. Mark this planet as forbidden. No vessel is to enter orbit. No landing is to be attempted. We will record and move on. The crew nodded, relieved by the order. Their training had taught them that caution was survival. Planets like this were to be feared, respected, and avoided. Still, curiosity tugged at them. They had never seen numbers so extreme. The sensors showed not a single safe region. Even the high mountains, which sometimes provided refuge on other dangerous worlds, were ripped apart by air currents too fast for any ship to endure. One young technician, Laro, hesitated before speaking. "Commander, why does it even exist like this? How can so many lethal conditions gather in one place? It looks less like a planet and more like a trial ground built by some cruel hand." His words unsettled the room further, for the thought was not entirely impossible. Across the stars, civilizations whispered stories of ancient builders who left behind strange test worlds. Yet this seemed too wild, too untamed, to be artificial. The planet was chaos shaped into land and sea, a true engine of destruction forged by nature alone. Roll looked at the screen one last time. The planet rotated slowly, its surface flashing with storms like a warning light. The universe has places where life does not belong. This is one of them. Record it. Seal it. We leave at once. But even as he gave the order, the ship's sensors registered something unexpected. Hidden between the deadly signals was a faint signature, regular and patterned. It was not natural. It was technology. The readings showed small energy fields scattered across one of the continents. The fields were too stable, too precise, to be accidents. The commander frowned. "Are we certain? In this storm, interference is possible." Kira double-checked the data and shook her head firmly. "No mistake, Commander. Those are artificial constructs. There is activity on the surface. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. Who or what could survive there? Even the most advanced species in the known galaxy would struggle to land a probe, let alone build something lasting. Yet the sensors did not lie. Laro leaned closer to the console, his voice barely a whisper. If something lives there, it cannot be anything we know. No one could stand against those storms. No one could breathe that air. The commander felt the weight of the unknown pressing upon him. He had given the order to avoid the planet, but the mystery pulled at him like gravity. Worlds this dangerous were rare. Worlds this dangerous with signs of life were impossible. He tightened his grip on the arm of his chair. Prepare the long-range visuals. I want confirmation with my own eyes before we leave. The crew obeyed, adjusting the ship's optics to pierce the rolling clouds. The image sharpened, and what they saw froze them all. Against the storm-lit sky, small shelters stood on the ground, their walls bright against the dark landscape. Trails stretched from one shelter to another. Tiny vehicles moved across them. And there, walking freely on the soil of the most dangerous planet ever recorded, were living beings. The shock hit them harder than any storm could. The beings were not hidden. They were not struggling. They walked with calm steps, stopping to point at the scenery, to gather around fires, to speak to one another. They looked as though they were not only surviving, but enjoying the world around them. Kira's hand trembled as she whispered the identification from the scanner. The word carried disbelief, awe, and a shadow of fear. Commander, they are humans. The alien explorers could hardly believe their eyes. The surface of the Class-20 Deathworld was chaos itself, a storm of danger in every direction, yet the humans below behaved as if they had stepped into a holiday retreat. The display screens aboard the Viore ship showed people moving across the land without panic, carrying bags, setting up colorful shelters, and even laughing together. Commander Roll stared at the feed in silence. The thought of life on such a planet had seemed absurd only moments before, and yet here it was, undeniable. These were not stranded survivors fighting for their last breath. These were travelers who had come by choice. Focus the lenses, he ordered, his voice heavy with disbelief. I want to see every detail. Kira adjusted the controls, and the picture sharpened. The explorers leaned forward as the scene became clear. A group of humans had built a camp near the edge of a forest. The trees around them swayed under fierce winds, and rain pelted the ground in sheets, yet the camp stood steady. Bright shelters glowed with warm light, their surfaces slick with water but unbroken. Humans moved in and out of them with calm ease, carrying supplies, food, and equipment. One human stepped into the storm without a helmet or breathing mask. The crew gasped as the wind whipped at his clothes. Their sensors screamed warnings about poison levels in the air, but the human simply raised his arms and laughed at the sky as if greeting an old friend. Then he walked back to the fire where others sat, completely unharmed. How is this possible? Laro whispered. His scales shifted pale with fear. The air should have ended him. The storm should have torn him apart. He is, smiling. None of them had an answer. Another group of humans appeared on the screen. They were climbing a ridge of dark stone that had sharp points jutting like blades. Lightning forked across the horizon, striking dangerously close, but the humans pressed on with excitement in their movements. At the top, they stood together, raised their arms, and took pictures as if the deadly storm behind them were nothing more than a scenic background. The crew felt a mix of awe and dread. To the Viore, such an environment was an instant death sentence. To the humans, It was a place to explore, to enjoy, to capture in memory. "They cannot be sane," muttered one of the officers. "No being would willingly choose this. They must be different." Roll narrowed his eyes at the screen. "Different, yes. But do not mistake that for foolishness. Look closer. Their shelters are not ordinary. Their gear adapts to the weather. They plan carefully. What seems like recklessness may be something else entirely." Kira nodded slowly. "Commander is correct. They are not ignoring the dangers. They are mastering them. It is as if this entire planet has become their test, and they treat it as play." The crew fell quiet again, each lost in thought. The Viori were explorers, trained to face the unknown, but their courage had limits. Their kind calculated risks, measured dangers, and avoided worlds that promised certain death. But humans seemed to run toward those very places. As the explorers continued watching, the humans began to gather in a circle around a fire pit. The storm raged on, but the flames stayed strong within a shield of energy that pulsed faintly around the camp. The humans roasted food, shared drinks, and sang together. Their voices carried over the howling winds, warm and full of joy. To the Viori, it was unthinkable. To sit and sing in the jaws of destruction defied every instinct they had. And yet the evidence was there, right in front of them. Laro turned to the commander again, his voice barely audible. "Are they fearless? Or do they simply not understand the danger?" Roll's gaze stayed fixed on the humans. "They understand. I have no doubt. But they are built to endure what we cannot. Their kind does not just survive. They thrive." The words settled over the crew like a weight. If this was how humans treated a Class-20 death world, how much more could they endure elsewhere? If this was their idea of leisure, what would they consider true hardship? Kira's hands shook slightly as she adjusted the sensors. "Commander, I am reading more camps across the continent. Hundreds of humans are here, maybe more. They are not hiding. They are not suffering. They are vacationing." The room went silent. The word carried an almost unreal weight. Vacation. On a world where no other species would dare land a probe, humans had come for pleasure. The alien explorers exchanged uneasy looks. For years, they had heard scattered stories about humans' tales of stubbornness, of reckless bravery, of impossible survival. They had thought those were exaggerations born of rumor and fear. But now they were witnessing the truth with their own eyes. Roll leaned back in his chair, his expression dark with thought. "Record everything. The Council must see this. It will change how the galaxy views them." The feed continued to show humans exploring the land, climbing rocks, diving into rivers, and laughing beneath the storms. To the explorers, it was a nightmare. To the humans, it was paradise. The commander spoke again, quieter this time, as if to himself. "This is not a death world. Not for them. For humans, it is only another playground." The crew did not argue. They could only watch, stunned, as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. The Viori crew could not look away from the images on their screens. The humans were moving deeper into the wilderness of the Class-20 death world as if the storm-scarred land were no more dangerous than a garden park. On one part of the feed, two humans carried long sticks with gear tied to them. They smiled and pointed toward a jagged cliff where black clouds swirled. Without hesitation, they started climbing. The cliff was sharp and wet, the rocks cut into their hands, and the wind threatened to pull them down. Yet their laughter carried through the microphones. When they reached the top, Instead of resting, they raised their arms, cheering as lightning struck in the distance. They took pictures and waved at the sky as though celebrating a victory. The crew exchanged uneasy glances. To them, this was madness. To humans, it seemed like joy. At another camp, a family group was preparing to cross a river. The sensors showed the water filled with creatures longer than a shuttle, their bodies lined with scales and sharp fins. The predators circled the humans, waiting. The Viori expected fear. Instead, the humans inflated bright floating devices, laughed together, and jumped into the water. They paddled across, the creatures brushing close, but none dared attack. Perhaps the humans carried some hidden device to protect them, or perhaps it was sheer confidence that carried them through. Whatever the reason, they reached the far side safely, cheering and shaking off the water as if it were a simple game. The explorers on the ship whispered to one another, trying to make sense of it. "They do not fight the world," said Kira slowly. "They join it. They accept the danger as part of the experience." Roll nodded, his face grim. "And by doing so, they turn death into amusement. What we fear most, they treat as play." The most shocking sight came hours later. A storm formed above the forest, lightning flashing again and again. Winds tore trees apart, flinging branches through the air. The Viori braced themselves just watching from orbit, but the humans below did not retreat. Instead, they set up small structures, thin poles with colored fabric, and anchored them into the ground. The humans crawled inside these fragile shelters, laughing as the storm slammed against them. The commander could hardly believe it. "They sleep here? In this storm? No shield. No protection. They are mad." But when the storm finally passed, the shelters still stood. Humans crawled out, stretching and smiling at the new sunrise. Some brewed hot drinks over portable heaters. Others took more pictures. Their voices rose in songs again, as though they had conquered the storm simply by enduring it. The Viori crew felt a chill. For them, survival meant retreating, hiding, calculating every safe move. For humans, survival meant stepping forward and daring the world to break them. Laro, still young and full of questions, whispered, "Commander, why would they come here? Why would they risk everything for nothing more than pleasure?" Roll's gaze did not leave the screen. "Because that is who they are. For humans, the challenge itself is the reward. Where others see danger, they see opportunity. Where we fear, they find excitement." As the day went on, more scenes filled the screens. A group of humans set up ropes between two tall cliffs and walked across as if balancing on a simple street beam. Below them raged a canyon of boiling rivers. Another group tested small vehicles, racing across the rocky plains while dust storms tried to consume them. Children even played outside, chasing one another through grass taller than their heads, while massive winged creatures circled above. Instead of fleeing, the children pointed and shouted with delight. The crew sat in stunned silence. Their instincts screamed that this world should mean certain death, yet the humans turned every danger into sport. The explorers began to feel a strange unease growing inside them. It was not only fear, but also respect. Kiro leaned closer to the commander. "If they can laugh on a Class-20 death world, what else can they endure? How far can they go?" Roll did not answer at once. He was thinking of the many reports he had once dismissed as exaggerations. Stories of humans climbing frozen peaks without machines, of swimming in oceans filled with beasts, of crossing deserts where no other species dared to set foot. Now those stories seemed far too mild. "They endure everything," he said finally. That is why the galaxy whispers about them. That is why even our strongest warriors hesitate when facing them. They do not stop. Not for storm, not for hunger, not for fear. If this is vacation to them, then what is war? The crew shivered at his words. They looked again at the screen where humans roasted food under the open sky. The smell of smoke and spice carried even to the Viore ship's filters, a strange reminder of how close and real these beings were. For the first time, Laro understood what the elders meant when they called humans unpredictable. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "They are not mad. They are human." The crew could not deny it. And as the sun dipped below the horizon of the Deathworld, painting the sky with fire, the humans gathered together, raising cups and singing louder. To them, it was celebration. To the Viore, it was revelation. The truth was clear: the most dangerous world in the galaxy was only a vacation ground for humanity. The Viore ship drifted quietly above the violent world, its crew staring at the humans below with growing disbelief. For hours, they had recorded the impossible. The data told them this was the most dangerous planet ever mapped, yet the humans walked freely, laughed, and even sang under its storms. Commander Roll sat at the center of the bridge, silent for a long time. His crew waited for orders, none daring to speak. Finally, he broke the silence. "We cannot turn away. If we leave now, the council will not believe us. They will say our records were corrupted. We need proof. We need direct contact." The crew reacted with alarm. Kira was the first to speak. "Commander, approach is unwise. This world is hostile to us. If the planet does not destroy us, the humans might." Roll's eyes narrowed. "Perhaps. But knowledge is worth the risk. Prepare a landing craft. Small, fast, shielded. We will go to the surface." The order left no room for argument. The crew obeyed, though their hands trembled. Within the hour, a small craft detached from the larger vessel and descended into the stormy skies. Lightning clawed across the clouds as they entered the atmosphere. Turbulence shook the craft, and the shields strained under the planet's fury, but the ship pressed downward. At last, through the chaos, they saw it, a human campsite glowing warmly against the darkness of the wild. The landing was rough but successful. The Viore stepped out, their protective suits humming as they adjusted to the toxic air. Their eyes darted across the land. Strange shapes moved in the forest beyond, and thunder cracked above, but the camp stood firm, lights shining, fire burning. Humans turned to face them. There were 6 of them near the fire: 3 men, 2 women, and 1 young child. For a moment, silence stretched. The Viore expected fear, perhaps alarm at seeing strangers step from the storm. Instead, the humans smiled. One of the men waved cheerfully. "Well now, visitors. Did not expect company out here. Come closer. Fire's warm." The Viore froze, uncertain. Were these beings truly inviting them, without suspicion, without question? The child stood beside the fire, wide-eyed but unafraid, as if alien explorers were no more threatening than birds. Kira whispered through the communicator. "Commander, they are welcoming us." Roll gave a slight nod and stepped forward. His movements were careful, measured, but the humans showed no sign of hostility. They simply made space around the fire, gesturing for the newcomers to sit. The Viore lowered themselves onto the rough ground. The heat from the fire reached through their suits, strangely comforting. The humans passed around food, roasted over the flames. The smell was rich and sharp. One of the women held out a piece toward Ril. "You should try it," she said with an easy smile. "Best part of camping is the food." Ril hesitated. His suit filtered everything for safety, but the gesture itself stunned him. Here they were, strangers from the stars, and the humans offered them food as though they were old friends. Kira leaned forward slightly. "You live here?" she asked carefully, her voice steady but curious. The man who had waved earlier laughed. "Live here? No. We are just on vacation. 2 weeks, maybe 3. Enough to see the sights, climb some peaks, maybe dive in the northern rivers." The words sent ripples of shock through the Viuri. Vacation. A word that spoke of rest, pleasure, escape from danger. Yet these humans used it to describe their stay on a planet their scanners had marked as pure death. Ril found his voice at last. "Do you not fear this world? The storms, the beasts, the air?" The man shrugged, still smiling. "Fear makes it exciting. Besides, we have gear, we have skill, and we have each other. That is enough. You cannot enjoy life without a little risk." The child beside him nodded, holding a stick with roasted food on it. "The storms are loud, but they are pretty," she said. "And the rivers sparkle at night." The Viuri exchanged looks. To them, the storms were terror. To the humans, they were beauty. As the evening stretched on, the explorers listened more. The humans spoke of hikes planned for the next day, of caves to explore and cliffs to climb. They laughed about close encounters with predators, treating near-death experiences as funny stories to share. They took turns showing pictures captured on their devices, glowing skies, wild seas, and even the massive creatures of the forest. Each word, each laugh, unsettled the Viuri further. Their minds struggled to fit this into sense. Every instinct told them this world was unlivable, yet the evidence sat before them, roasting food and smiling. Ril looked at the humans long and hard. "Why here? Of all the worlds, why choose this one?" One of the women leaned back and looked at the storm above. Her eyes sparkled with excitement. "Because it is alive. The air, the land, the sea, everything here is wild. It makes us feel alive too. We can go to safe places anytime. But a world like this? It reminds us what we are." The fire cracked between them, and the storm rumbled overhead, yet the camp felt strangely calm. The humans spoke with warmth, with an openness that stripped away the alienness of the moment. The Viuri, though filled with unease, could not deny the pull of their spirit. At last, as the night deepened, the commander rose. "We thank you for your kindness," he said, his voice heavy with respect. "We will remember this meeting." The humans waved as the explorers returned to their craft. The child called out, "Come back tomorrow. We will show you the river caves." Back aboard their ship, the Viuri crew sat in silence. They had touched the ground of a Class-20 Deathworld and met those who vacationed there. What they had witnessed would change everything they thought they knew about humans. Ril spoke softly, but every ear heard the weight in his voice. "This is not madness. This is humanity." The Viuri ship drifted in low orbit, its crew replaying the encounter again and again. The humans they had met on the surface were not warriors, not survival experts sent by some great power. They were ordinary people. Families, friends, travelers. Yet they thrived on a world where no other species could set foot. For the Viuri, this was a puzzle that demanded an answer. How could they live on a Class-20 death world with such calm confidence? Commander Ril ordered a closer study. He wanted to understand the tools and knowledge that made the impossible seem like play. From orbit, their scanners tracked human camps across the continent. Each camp was different in size and shape, but all showed the same pattern: order within chaos. Humans built shelters that glowed with energy shields, thin but flexible. Instead of resisting the storms with brute force, the shields bent with the wind, absorbing its fury and redirecting it. To the Viori engineers, this was a revelation. They had always designed structures to oppose nature with strength, yet the humans had chosen to work with it. The explorers also noticed how humans carried portable machines that recycled air and filtered toxins. These devices were small, light, and efficient, built to run on little power. Most species required large facilities to survive hostile air, but humans wore their survival on their belts and backs, turning danger into something manageable. Kira, studying the data, spoke in awe. Their technology is not the most advanced in the galaxy. But it is clever. Simple designs, made to last, easy to carry. They do not try to dominate the planet. They adapt to it. On the surface, the crew observed more. A group of humans prepared to climb a cliff beside boiling rivers. Before beginning, they carefully tested the stone, marked safe routes with paint, and tied ropes across sharp ridges. Each person checked the gear of the next, ensuring no one was left at risk. They laughed while doing it, but the discipline beneath the laughter was clear. Roll nodded slowly as he watched. They look careless, but they are not. Every step is measured. Every risk is known. They make survival look easy because they plan so well. Later, another group of humans entered a cave glowing with toxic gas. The Viori expected disaster, yet the humans wore simple masks that filtered the poison into harmless air. They carried lanterns that doubled as detectors, warning them of weak stone or unsafe passages. When they found a flooded chamber, they switched to diving gear, their movements practiced and calm. Even when one of them slipped, the others reacted quickly, pulling him back with ropes already in place. The crew could not deny it any longer. What seemed like madness was a pattern of preparation, experience, and trust. Humans carried knowledge of danger as easily as they carried their packs. During another visit to the campsite, the Viori dared to ask questions directly. Around the fire, with rain falling on the energy shield above, Commander Roll leaned forward. "Tell us," he asked one of the men, "how do you survive here? Our scans show storms strong enough to crush metal, rivers that would tear us apart, air that would poison us. Yet you sit here and smile." The man poked at the fire with a stick. "It is not about fighting the world. It is about learning how it works. Once you understand, you prepare. You bring the right tools, the right friends, and the right spirit. The planet tests us, but that is the fun of it." Another human, a woman with sharp eyes, added, "Every place has rules. If you respect those rules, you can live anywhere. Even here." The child beside her laughed and held up her small mask. "See? This makes the air fine. And Papa says the rain is safe to drink if we clean it. It tastes better than home water." The Viori exchanged uneasy glances. They had always seen hostile worlds as enemies to avoid, but the humans spoke of them as puzzles to solve, partners in a strange dance. As the night grew darker, the humans showed more of their gear. Small stoves that could cook even in howling winds. Tents that folded into tiny packs but could resist storms. Ropes strong enough to hold against rocks sharper than knives. Simple tools, yet brilliant in design. Roll felt a strange respect forming inside him. "Your inventions are not like ours," he admitted. They are not made for power. They are made for trust. The man nodded with pride. Exactly. We do not need the strongest machines. We need tools that keep us alive together. That is what matters. The fire crackled, and the storm outside roared, but the humans continued sharing food and stories, unshaken. For the Viuri, the truth was undeniable now. This was not luck. It was not madness. It was the human way of life, to take the harshest world and turn it into a challenge worth facing. Back aboard the ship, the explorers gathered their reports. Kira summarized what they all felt. They survive because they prepare, but they also survive because they enjoy the challenge. To them, danger is not an end. It is the beginning of the story. Ro looked out the viewing window at the raging planet below. Yes, he said quietly. And that is why they are different. While we fear the storm, they build a fire beneath it. The crew nodded, each feeling the weight of those words. For the first time, they began to see that the humans were not only visitors on this world. They were proving something greater, that survival itself could be turned into joy. The Class-20 Deathworld was no longer just a warning in their charts. It was now a symbol of what humans could do when others would give up. The Viuri ship floated silently in orbit as the alien sensors detected movement far beyond the planet. At first, it seemed impossible. Another fleet approached, sleek and dark, gliding across space with military precision. They were not explorers like the Viuri, they were hunters, observers, and potential enemies. The aliens had been watching the humans from afar, and the sudden appearance of the Viuri craft had alerted them. Their purpose was clear: humans were dangerous, unpredictable, and must be contained if necessary. They moved closer, weapons drawn, scanning for the source of the disturbance on the planet below. Commander Roll watched the approaching fleet with a sense of dread. Kira, scan their formations. How many ships? Too many to count easily, she replied, her voice tight. Their fleet is large, and they are fast. They may be here in minutes. The humans below remained unaware. In their camps, they continued to enjoy the planet, laughing around fires, climbing cliffs, and exploring caves. Even with storms and predators around, they were calm. To the Viuri, it was both inspiring and terrifying. We cannot let them harm the humans, Roll said, gripping the edge of the console. If they know humans are here, it will not end peacefully. The first wave of alien ships entered the upper atmosphere. They fired warning beams that shattered rocks and ignited small fires on the surface. The humans, however, did not panic. A group looked toward the sky, raised their arms, and shouted over the roar of the blasts, signaling each other calmly. From the Viuri craft, the humans' actions seemed impossible. They were moving as one, using equipment that adjusted to the violent world. Small devices blinked and hummed, creating barriers of light that deflected the alien beams. One human shouted instructions, and others followed without hesitation. Roll realized that if humans could adapt to the planet's storms, they could certainly handle these attackers in ways the Viuri could not predict. They are ready, he said, awe in his voice. They do not need fear to act. The humans climbed into their vehicles, small but fast, designed to move over jagged terrain. The aliens fired at them, but the humans dodged with incredible skill. Some rode across rivers, using floating platforms to avoid predators and molten rock. Others used ropes and pulleys to cross cliffs instantly. Each move was planned, yet executed with an almost playful confidence. The Viuri watched, amazed. These were not soldiers trained for war, they were vacationers, families, and friends, but their ingenuity turned them into a force no one would expect. "Commander, they are outnumbered," Kira said. "If they engage, they could be destroyed." Roll shook his head. "Not if they fight like humans. They turn every disadvantage into strength." The humans on the surface coordinated quickly. Using tools and vehicles, they created diversions and traps. Rocks were rolled into paths, rivers were guided to slow enemy vehicles, and bridges of rope and metal allowed them to move where the aliens could not follow. Each human seemed to know instinctively where to go, how to react, and how to survive. Then came the moment of reckoning. The aliens descended toward the main camp, firing beams to scatter the humans. The humans responded with a strategy the Viori could not have anticipated. Small energy fields they had set up earlier pulsed in synchronization, deflecting attacks and creating barriers. Vehicles charged the attackers from unexpected angles, leading them into pits and narrow passages where their size and speed became disadvantages. The Viori crew watched, jaws tight, as the humans turned the tide of battle with creativity and courage. It was not brute force, it was intelligence, coordination, and fearless will. Each human action seemed simple, almost casual, but it had deadly efficiency. Roll could only whisper, "They fight not because they must, but because they can. They see opportunity where others see doom." The aliens began to retreat. Even their advanced ships could not anticipate the humans' methods, the ways they used the environment to their advantage, and the sheer unpredictability of their moves. Each retreating ship confirmed what the Viori had feared: humans were not ordinary. They were a species capable of survival in ways others could not comprehend. Back at the camp, the humans cheered softly. Their shelters and vehicles had survived, and the planet itself seemed to settle as if approving their resilience. They looked at each other and laughed, as if the danger had been part of the adventure all along. Roll turned to Kira, his face a mix of respect and disbelief. "If this is how they act on a vacation, imagine them in a war. Imagine them when the stakes are life and death. No force in this sector would predict their actions. None." Kira nodded slowly. "Their strength is not just physical. It is in their minds, their planning, and their courage. And in their joy. They are not afraid of danger, Commander. They live with it, and they thrive." The fleet of aliens retreated into space, shaken and unsure. The humans waved at them from the ground, as if saying goodbye to something inconsequential. The Viori crew, however, understood. They had witnessed an event that would echo across the galaxy. Humans were unpredictable, unstoppable, and impossible to underestimate. Roll finally spoke, quietly but firmly. "Today, the galaxy learns something new. The planet may be deadly, but it is conquered by humanity. And that is a lesson no one will forget." The crew sat back, stunned, watching the humans on the surface laugh, tend fires, and explore the terrain. Against the deadliest world and the deadliest fleet, the humans had triumphed, not with weapons alone, but with courage, ingenuity, and an unbreakable spirit. The storm above the Deathworld raged on, but beneath it, the humans moved with grace and purpose, reminding the universe that danger only made them stronger. The storm above the Class-20 Deathworld had faded, leaving a sky painted with streaks of red and gold. The humans, unshaken by the chaos of the past hours, moved across the landscape as if nothing had changed. Fires burned softly at their camps, tents shimmered with protective energy, and laughter carried across the plains. To any other species, this would have seemed impossible. To the Viori watching from orbit, it was awe-inspiring. Commander Roll leaned against the console, eyes fixed on the humans below. "They have survived the impossible," he said quietly. "They did not merely survive, they thrived." Kira adjusted the sensors, replaying the footage of the clash with the alien fleet. "Not just the storm, Commander. Not just the planet. They faced an organized force and turned the situation to their advantage. And they did it without fear. They enjoy the challenge." Roll nodded slowly. The lesson was clear. Humans were more than clever or strong. They were resilient in ways that no other species could understand. Danger was not something to avoid, it was an opportunity. Far below, the humans had begun to repair minor damage to their equipment. They laughed as they worked, joking about the alien ships and the storms. To them, it was part of the adventure, part of the experience they had come to seek. One human pointed toward the horizon, where the last of the alien fleet had disappeared into space. "Looks like the skies are safe for now," he said, smiling at his friends. The Viore crew felt a shiver of unease mixed with admiration. How could a species treat the deadliest planet in the galaxy as a playground? How could they face enemies and laugh while doing it? The answer was in the humans themselves: courage, intelligence, and a spirit that refused to bow to fear. As the humans gathered around a large fire, they began to share stories of their day's adventures. A group had climbed a cliff that even the Viore considered impassable. Another had paddled through rivers filled with predators. Each tale ended with laughter, with pride, and with a sense of accomplishment that no danger could diminish. The Viore realized that what they were witnessing was more than survival. It was a demonstration of human will. Where other species saw impossibility, humans saw opportunity. Where others would falter, humans advanced. They did not merely live, they lived fully, boldly, and without hesitation. Roll turned to Kira. "Prepare a report for the council. They must see this. Humanity is unlike anything in the galaxy. We have underestimated them for too long." Kira nodded, her voice steady but full of awe. "It will change everything, Commander. Other species will hear of this day and know that humans are not to be ignored. Their legend will grow." Below, the humans had begun to climb another ridge, laughing at the wind that tried to push them back. Some took pictures, others tested climbing ropes, and one child ran ahead, fearless and full of energy. The planet, deadly and wild, seemed almost tamed by their presence. Roll watched silently. "We have seen the impossible," he said. "We have seen the strength of humanity, and it is more than we imagined. They are the kind of species that the galaxy must respect. They do not wait for safety, they make it. They do not fear challenges, they embrace them." The humans paused at the top of the ridge, arms raised against the sunset. Their silhouettes were small against the vastness of the Deathworld, yet their presence felt enormous. The Viore could feel the energy, the defiance, the life force that radiated from them. It was a force that no weapon, no storm, and no fleet could diminish. One of the humans turned to the others, smiling. "We survived again. And tomorrow, we climb higher. The world has more to show us." The words echoed in the minds of the Viore. That was the essence of humanity. They did not rest. They did not give up. Even in the face of impossible odds, they advanced, adapted, and thrived. They had transformed the deadliest world in the galaxy into a playground, and in doing so, they had shown the universe the power of their spirit. Roll finally spoke to his crew. "Remember this, all of you. The humans are a warning and a lesson. Where others see fear, they see opportunity. Where others retreat, they advance. We have not only observed their skill, we have witnessed their courage, and it will shape how the galaxy interacts with them from this day forward. As night fell, the humans gathered by the fire once more. Their laughter and voices carried across the plains, a signal in itself, a signal of life, of endurance, and of triumph. Far above, the Viore ships watched, recording every moment. And so, the galaxy would learn. The humans were not just survivors. They were masters of challenge, explorers of danger, and creators of their own fate. The legend of humanity would spread from one star system to another, carried in tales and signals, as a species that could turn the deadliest worlds into homes, the fiercest storms into playgrounds, and impossible odds into victories. The death world rumbled beneath them, wild and untamed. But the humans walked upon it as if it were a stage for adventure, fearless and unbroken. Their signal of courage and joy reached far beyond their planet, a message to the stars that humanity would never fade, never falter, and never be underestimated. The universe would remember this day. The humans had shown that they could face the impossible and smile.